This is Maple and Myrrh, a queer Canadian look at spirituality for those who feel unrooted. These are conversations about the path to remembering who we are.
Hey everyone! Welcome to Maple and Myrrh. I'm here with trans icon, Mr.Teri Westerby.
And I'm here with the brave, bold, and brilliant Britt. Britt, I have a question for you. What would you say if I told you that life was meaningless?
Can I ask a follow-up question?
No, just kidding. Yes, go ahead.
Just so I understand. Are we talking about because we are eternal souls or because this is like a simulation, or like I need a little context?
Well, when I was in my recovery from gender-affirming surgery, I read a book called Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl. And so the concept of meaning, like many folks feel that life has an inherent meaning. Like if you leave your house and then you bump into someone you were thinking about, you're like, oh, this means that I was meant to talk to them. And that's like there's some sort of universal meaning behind things. And they just feel like life has meaning, and it's absolutely true. But there are some who may argue that life is actually void of meaning, that there is no meaning. It's just all chaos.
Oh, I don't agree with that. And you're like, I'm going to
Well,
spend the next 90 minutes proving you wrong.
so the interesting thing about the book was it's only 154 pages, like this version, but it is one of the most life-changing books I ever read because it focuses on the individual search for meaning, and Viktor Frankl argues the most important thing to human beings is that search for meaning, that individual search for meaning.
So I had this really cool dream where I was in a house and it was floor to ceiling glass windows, and I'm just watching people walk by and live their lives, and a voice said the most beautiful part of life is that everyone gets to decide what it means for them. Deep.
Yeah, that's essentially what logotherapy, which is Viktor Frankl's therapy, was about. The concept that life has meaning to each individual person, and that is the deepest purpose for human beings. Like I've read books, all sorts of books that have taught me things like spirituality and politics and talking about queerness and transgender identity. But this one is just, I don't know, because maybe I was in recovery and I was in this strange place where like my body had gone through something huge and life changing. Like I was sitting there still with my own thoughts, just like not really sure what was going on, and like what does this mean for me, and what does this mean for like the next parts of my life, and like I'm turning 40 next year, and so all these things were coming up for me. And then this like tiny book by this Jewish psychiatrist who survived Nazi concentration camps, he was starting to ask like the biggest question a human being can ask, like what gives life meaning.
Okay, I'm really excited to learn about this. This sounds awesome.
I just like want to give this book to everybody because it's just so life changing.
Well, that's the beauty of this podcast, is you're just going to do it for me.
I swear this podcast is going to be longer than the book takes to read.
It's because I won't be quiet during it, probably.
So more than like what gives people meaning, because I don't think any book can just be like, this is what life, like the meaning of life is. This book is like asking questions like what happens to someone's meaning when everything that used to give your life structure was taken away. Like he uses his experience through the Holocaust to explain like what happens to you when everything's taken, your home, your family, your work, like your body as you knew it, your safety, like the structures that provided people safety and citizenship, like their literal future, your place in the world. It was all just taken.
Mm-hmm.
And like this is a Holocaust survivors book, so I don't want to go in here and be like, we can take this and apply it like liberally. I just really
Yeah.
want to hold space that this is about the Holocaust. Yeah, but for queer and trans people, like for me, I just took so much from it that I could apply to my very privileged experience in this corner of the world.
I know. I just want to hold space also because, like, as a cis presenting white woman, I have not gone through the experiences you have. And I have definitely not gone through like Holocaust survivor, you know what I mean? So I think it's okay for me to just give space, because sometimes it's okay to just listen and absorb and not interject, because that gives you the power you deserve for like sitting in and being present in the experiences you've had.
I appreciate that. I'm hoping that for you and for anyone listening that, and I believe that's what Viktor Frankl's ultimate goal with this book was to show how one of the most horrendous experiences where everything about you is stripped away can serve as, it can show you how you can apply what he learned through that to your own life and to free yourself from the things that may torture you mentally, and I'll get into that a little bit more, but I think it would be almost a disservice to not learn from what these like, he experienced and what from the people he witnessed experienced. We got a whole space for what they went through and then absorb that learning all into each and every one of us because I think that's ultimately what he's sort of trying to say is, like, we need to take meaning from everything that happens, and not that it's a good thing that it happened, and not to say, "I'm glad this happened because we have meaning now," but to
Mhm.
find meaning even in the absolute or most horrendous circumstances that human beings could ever face.
Yeah, it's before the podcast started, Terry and I were just talking, and I talked about how I made a mistake this morning, but it's not a mistake anymore because I learned something from it. So, yeah, finding meaning, like why, like what can I take from this no matter what it was.
Yeah, absolutely. And for queer and trans people and anyone who's had to like rebuild their own meaning after the meanings that we inherited were taken from us or became unsafe. Like, for example, if you're born into a religious space or religious family and you build community around a church and then you find out you're queer and then they all reject you, everything that gave you meaning is now taken from you. So, how do you rebuild your own life and your own meaning when that's gone?
Tell us, Terry.
All of us were handed these scripts, right? Gender scripts, religious scripts, family scripts, stories about like what love's supposed to look like, about what kind of body's acceptable, about what kind of life is holy, respectable, or allowed. So if those things gave us meaning before and they're gone, and does that mean that life has no meaning? Or does it mean that meaning was never supposed to be handed to us like a prescription in the first place? And that's what Viktor Frankl argues. A lot of people say that Frankl is like an existentialist, like nihilism, and he does deal with existential questions like life and death and suffering and freedom, responsibility and love, meaning. But he's not saying that life has no meaning, so go ahead and make one up for everyone. He's kind of saying we should be a little more careful. Like life doesn't just come from one universal meaning that applies to everyone in the same way. We get that kind of message a lot with patriarchy. Like you're born a woman, your job, like your meaning in life is to raise children and support the husband, and like that is universal for everyone. And he's saying like absolutely not. There is no universal meaning for everyone that is just prescribed to you once you're born. Human beings don't get handed a script and that says like here's your purpose.
Mhm.
He argues like meaning is deeply personal. It's situational based on like what you're going through, and it changes depending on who we are and where we've lived and who we love and what's life asking of us and who we're responsible to. In a lot of the examples that he's giving is within the context of Auschwitz, and he speaks about prisoners' relationships to each other because there was hierarchy within the prisons, and some prisoners were almost like guards as well, and, like, he argues that those people he felt those people were more responsible to other prisoners than even the guards were, and so there was a complete shift in the dynamic depending on the roles that you were taking up in that environment. And but for Franco, meaning is not fake just because it's personal. Like, I could say to you, like, "This means something to me," and then you could say, "Well, this means something to me," and it's like, we can't just sit there and argue that my meaning is more meaningful than your meaning or my meaning overrides yours. Like, each person has their own personal meaning to what's going on. And so that's ultimately the reason why I wanted to bring this book on this podcast and talk about it with you because in many ways queer people are asking like what's still sacred to us even after the places that called themselves sacred hurt us. What's our truth after people tried to claim one truth to erase us? And what does freedom mean really when your choices are shaped by trauma and gender, poverty, oppression? Can you really be free if you're born into material conditions that try to prevent you from being
Yeah.
free? Like, how can you be
Yeah.
free if you really can't make those choices?
Yeah.
So, I want to walk us through this book slowly talk about who Viktor Frankl was, what happened to him, what he actually wrote, and like the themes, and then some of the philosophies, the core philosophies that I kind of walked away from it with, and then what I think queer people can take home from this. Not like a self help slogan. But there's a lot of romanticizing of suffering. People saying just choose your attitude. The only reason you can't is because your mindset. You can overcome suffering.
I'm bad for that. I'm bad for that.
That's what a lot of people kinda get from his work, like, the
Mhm.
the worst things in the world could happen to you, but it's in your mindset that makes it better,
Yeah.
and he has themes that show like that is an underlying truth. However, suffering is not good, and suffering isn't spiritually required.
Mm.
I mean, in my opinion, I find it has been helpful for me to, like, uncover myself, but he's not saying that people should go seek pain in order to become meaningful.
Right. Seeking pain is not great, but plants can't grow without rain, right? Like life will never just be good. So absorbing the bad times, taking what you can from them, growing from them. Yeah.
Yeah, I think the way to maybe frame it where it's not like that suffering was a good thing that happened to you. It's like that thing happened to you. Suffering is already here. Suffering you didn't choose and you can't maybe yet escape. Like don't stay in
Mhm,
suffering because you think it's going to make you more spiritual. But if you're
mhm,
in that, if it's already happened to you, if it's already something you're experiencing, human beings have the remarkable ability to still be able to find a thread of like dignity and love and responsibility and meaning within those personal circumstances, like, not easily or magically, but just it's just something that human beings can do, and that thread is enough to keep a person connected to life, even in the harshest of circumstances. So, like, if you're going through something horrendous, if your parents absolutely refuse to accept you for who you are, use your chosen name, they just deny you, they gaslight you, but you can't leave. You can't there's nowhere you can go. If you do, you'll be absolutely, like, homeless or you don't know what's gonna happen to you and you're terrified. So Frankl is essentially arguing that life is not over, and yet you know you're not free. So how are you free in that moment when you can't be who you are? And if you do try, you can't live like a healthy life that you want to live.
yeah.
It's just complete conflict. What he's saying is that what gives someone the meaning and the drive to get through that is the vision that there's something on the other side. That there is that maybe the meaning in this moment for that person is I just got to get through this, or I'm just here for my little brother, and once he's old enough, I'm out of here, or I'm gonna just work until I have $10,000 in my bank account, and then I'm gonna get out of Dodge. Like those are the little meaningful things that keep people in
So
those
having something to
circumstances
work
going.
for, like having a goal.
That is one of the tenets of, what he believes are the pieces that give people meaning. I have a list of 18 of them, but that was definitely one of them. Future thinking and having goals to work towards and having people that love you and having something more beyond the current circumstances of suffering to think about. So, this book is a short version of the original Man's Search for Meaning in English, and it's like part memoir, but he's using the memoir as like a psychological observation. So he's not just like talking about what happened, is he's using specific examples of what happened to explain like his viewpoints of how people got through it and what happened to them
Mhm.
psychologically, what they went through, what he observed. And it feels like a very rare opportunity to have someone who's trained in psychology go through this horrendous experience to be able to witness it all and then write it in a book and provide us like a psychoanalysis of what happens to people in their absolute worst the worst things could ever happen to them.
I wonder if this helped. This must have helped a lot of people who'd gone through the process to see, like, did he provide people also with, like, advice on how to help themselves afterwards? Because could you imagine, like, a psychologist who'd written a book about how to heal after that when he'd been in it himself? That'd be
The wild thing is that he before the descent of Nazi Germany, he was already doing psychotherapy study, and he was already developing something he called logotherapy, which is this concept that it's a meaning center therapy, basically, because the deepest human drive was not pleasure, like Freud emphasized, and it wasn't power, like Adler emphasized, which were the two leading psychotherapies at the time. He believed that it was meaning. And so the Viktor Frankl Institute described the theory of that freedom of will to meaning, and meaning in life are the fundamental tenets of his therapy, and that's what he saw play out during his time in Auschwitz. So, yes, absolutely, and it was fascinating that he was developing this prior to his experience, and then his experience actually quite a bit lent to the development of logotherapy after. So, yeah, the book gets into kind of the two main sections of people's experiences. The first section is about like life in the camps, but he's not like going into every detail of like daily life in the camps. He's doing something specific with it. He's as a psychiatrist who survived the camps, he's asking like what happened inside the mind and the spirit of the ordinary prisoner. Like, what happened to them when they got in the trains, when they arrived in the camps, when they were stripped of all their clothes, and then when hunger became the central part of every day, when people started to go numb. Like, how do people keep going? And then after liberation, what happened to the body and the mind after they were free? If you go through that kind of complete degradation and torture, like, what happens to you after? Can you just, like, go back to life as normal?
gosh,
Is their life, like, normal afterwards?
yeah. You create a new
Mm.
normal, I guess.
And the interesting thing that he noted was that folks who left, they spent their time in camp dreaming about the people that they loved and, like, reuniting with them, not knowing if they were alive or gone, and after they were released to find out that the life that they left behind had just moved on and everyone that they were dreaming about was gone. And so everything that
Yeah.
gave them purpose and meaning wasn't there. And so they almost like had to rebuild once again. And it was for some of them, the torture was almost worse. Not to say worse, but it felt heavier in freedom than in the camps.
Well, of course, and survivor's guilt. Like, how come I got to live and everyone I've ever known is gone? And it's
Yeah.
awful.
And your business is gone, like all the structure that you relied on is gone. And how do you
Mhm.
rebuild a life in a world that was just completely stripped from you? And so the phrase will to meaning, that's one of the key phrases of Frankel's philosophy. It's a really simple phrase and kind of without the context, it almost kind of feels meaningless, like will to meaning. Like, what does that mean? But it means like we're not just creatures who want comfort. We're not just driven by like this need for success or like wanting to avoid pain. We need our life to mean something. Like, we can't just be robots on a machine who, like, it has to mean
Yeah,
something to us.
we need purpose.
And so when someone's life doesn't have meaning to them, like, when it doesn't mean anything, when they don't have purpose, or when that meaning starts to fall apart, and people enter what Frankl calls the existential vacuum. I've been there. Absolutely been there. Like, what am I doing? Like, who am I? Like, what's happening? Everything just starts to fall apart, and then you just feel like life is meaningless. But it's the emptiness people feel when they don't know what their life is for. And I think a lot of queer people know that feeling. Not that queerness creates some sort of emptiness in us, like not that it strips family from us, or like now that we're, two women, that means that who wears the pants? I can see a lot of straight straight people being like, how does your relationship have meaning if you don't know who runs the household? You know what I mean?
Right.
But so when you're in a queer relationship and all of those, like, the meanings behind your relationship are they don't apply, how do you like, does it feel empty? And for some people, it might at first, but we queer people kind of create this new meaning, and I think a lot of people see that now. Like, a lot of people see, like, when queer people start relationships or when they live a life with their chosen family, people are like, "Oh, you can make a new life for yourself. You can make meaning out of something that maybe looked different than what people tell me is a meaningful relationship." And so, like, when they leave the church, they learn how to pray in their own way. Like, that's kind of what this podcast is about, right? When when
Mhm.
you leave your gender role, like when you no longer identify as, like, for me, I no longer identify as a woman. I didn't know how to make meaning into my life as a man. It's just something I had to rebuild. And so for Frankl, that's kind of the will to meaning, right? When the old meaning is gone, what's carrying us forward into this new part of life? So it's almost like exciting when you start something new and you start a new job, you're like, I'm gonna create this like this really meaningful thing for myself. And like that desire, that passion, like that is kind of the will to meaning, as Frankl describes it. And like the underpinning of logotherapy.
Yeah. Yeah, it makes perfect sense. I think where a lot of people probably struggle with that is like the in between place of like when you're just kind of alone in a room and you're trying to figure out like, okay, this is where I need to get, but you have to go through that transitionary phase. It's can feel so isolating and you can feel so alone. And
Mhm.
yeah, it is a struggle. So this sounds like a great book to help kind of people through that.
Yeah, and the truth is, like, Viktor Frankl, he was, like, 1930s, 1940s, 1950s Germany, like, he was not writing for queer people,
He wasn't?
but, like, he was not a queer theologian, like, queerness didn't really enter his domain, it was just in general about meaning,
Mhm.
and I don't wanna pretend like this is something written for queer people, but it absolutely is something that I think, at least I know in my experience, is very helpful in helping me understand that I don't have to keep clinging to the old stories that were sold to me that, like, your purpose in life is to be a father and a
Mhm.
family man, and, like, you have to have a roof over your head, and you have to, like, have, retirement savings, and you have to have, like, the newest iPhone, and, like, all those things that we're told that just don't feel right, and you're like, "I just don't life is just running against the grain here," and it basically is like, "No, you choose what you wanna do in your life and what is meaningful to you, that is
Mhm.
it. That's the only thing that should matter."
And you know how you figure that out? You listen to that little voice in your chest. You have
Yes.
to listen to that little voice in your chest that's like, I'm not happy here. I want to leave this job. You know, when I'm around my brother, I really don't feel good about myself. Maybe I just should spend less time with them, right? Like, you don't have to be in situations that make you feel bad. And if something makes you feel bad, there's a reason for it, and you should listen to.
100%. You do not have to stay in situations just because someone told you that that's your job.
That's a hard one. It's hard. It's so hard. Do I leave this job to I've always wanted to run my own business, but that's so scary to make that jump, right? I don't want to be in this relationship. I don't want to be around my brother. Like, I don't want, you know what I mean? Like, this friend doesn't make me feel good about myself, but has been in my life my whole life. Does that mean I have to stay like sunken cost fallacy, right? There's so many things that go into play here. Oh, this is awesome. Carry on.
And the underlying piece of that is if you're doing something because it feels meaningful to them, like if you're like, "Oh, I have to stay
Yeah.
living with my brother or my mom or whatever because they need me." And
Yeah.
maybe you find meaning in that. Maybe you're like, "I it's meaningful for me to be needed and I that matters to me." But if you're like, "This is sucking me dry and I'm only doing it because they want me to, but it doesn't provide me any meaning," and you're feeling like life is drowning you, that's a sign. That's that voice inside you, like your body is telling you. Your higher self is
Yeah.
telling you,
Yeah.
"Listen."
Nobody loves you more than yourself. If your whole body tenses up in a situation, listen to that.
Exactly. Now, the one thing that I actually wanted to quote directly from the book is about responsibility, because I know there are a lot of folks like I think you and I, right, where it's like everything we do, we know impacts others, and like we're almost like hyper aware of the external ways in which we impact the world, and like we internalize our behavior and be like, what did I do wrong? What did I do? And so we take responsibility a lot, often maybe more like we take responsibility for others, not just ourselves. But there are people out there who kind of don't take responsibility and they're like, I can do whatever I want and I don't care how it impacts others. And I just want to quote this because Frankl is not saying that like the only meaning in life is what you make of it. So go and do whatever the heck you want. He really does emphasize that it is a balance of responsibility. And so I want to read this quote here. He said, "That's why I recommend that the Statue of Liberty on the East Coast be supplemented by a statue of responsibility on the West Coast."
What is the West Coast Statue of Liberty gonna look like? It's it's
That's
just
a
like
good
Cheech
question.
and Chong, but it's like a joint, like a flaming joint up in the that made me laugh.
But he really does emphasize that like you're free and those freedoms must be like you must be responsible for how those freedoms impact others. It's like this like perfect resting tension balance between individual meaning and purpose and responsibility to the whole. And yeah, I just wanted to emphasize that because I think there's a lot of debate over like freedom versus responsibility, and it's both. It's like yes and. But so one of the other questions that he really tries to tackle is if suffering has already happened, how do I keep that from letting that be the only story about me? Like I don't want to just be the survivor of, violence. I don't want to just be
Mhm.
the boy who lived, But that like is a fundamentally spiritual question. It's about trauma and like queerness and like, being human. So let me tell you a little bit about Viktor Frankl, just to give you some quick backstory. He was born in Vienna, Austria.
That was my favorite place I backpacked to in Europe, by the way. Like, Vienna, Austria.
Mm, nice. In 1905, he was
Maybe not
Jewish
then.
and he became a neurologist and a psychiatrist. But he was interested in this from a very young age. Like as a teenager, he was corresponding with Freud, and he went to the University of Vienna as a very young man. And he immediately spent all of his life learning about therapy. And he really was focusing on people who were struggling with despair. Like one of the details I find the most interesting is that after his like path through medical school and he graduated, he worked in a hospital ward for women who had attempted suicide.
Mhm.
So the question about meaning was not something he invented like after the camps. It was something he was already trying to understand why people lose the will to live and what helps them stay connected to life. And that's when history took a turn. Like he was just a young man just starting out developing his logotherapy in 1938 when Nazi Germany annexed Austria. It's called the Anschluss. It's a pretty well-known
That
situation.
sounded good. That was a good pronunciation.
And so Jewish people in Austria were rapidly pushed out of public life and professional, like economic life and ordinary safety. Like, and then Vienna became a major site of anti-Jewish persecution, forced immigration, deportation, and murder. And the United States Holocaust Memorial Museum describes Vienna after the Anschluss as a place where Jews were humiliated, dispossessed, forced out, deported, and killed under Nazi rule. So Franco worked at the Rothschild Hospital in Vienna during this time, which was the only hospital still admitting Jewish patients under the Nazis. And so he had the opportunity to leave Austria, but he chose to stay partly because he didn't want to abandon his parents. So by 1942, Frankel and his wife Tilly and his parents were deported. And that's where his father died. And then later, Franco was transported to Auschwitz, and him and his wife were split up, and his family were split up. And then he was moved around to a few camps. He went to Dachau, Kaufering, and Turkheim. His mother and brother were murdered at Auschwitz, and his wife eventually
God.
did die at Bergen-Belsen. But Franco survived, and through all that, he had absolutely no idea that his family had died. So
Yeah.
he they for him were a source of meaning throughout his experience.
Oh, it's just devastating.
I actually was just, like, sobbing when he was talking about his wife because there was a moment where he saw a sunset and he was thinking about his wife, and he spent the whole time talking to his wife in his head, and when it was revealed that she passed, I actually just stopped and sobbed.
Yeah, my dad, when he was in his young 20s, he, as everyone in our family kinda does, we do a huge backpacking trip around Europe, and he went to Auschwitz, and it's kind of I mean, you'll probably be surprised to hear that everyone in my family can kind of feel energies. And he said when he went to Auschwitz, like, before you even get to, like, that first gate, you can feel just suffering and pain, and it's, like, just a wall of awful, and I just, like, how do you ever erase the evil from a place like that? And would we want to? Wouldn't we want that to stand as a reminder of one of the darkest times in human history? Ugh, awful.
Yeah. I have not had the opportunity to go in person, but I've taken in media, and one of the ones that have just always haunted me is the piles of, like, shoes and clothes,
Yeah,
and there's something about the shoes, and I'm gonna go into a little bit more about the shoes in part of the scenes later on, but it's when you see the scale, like, the volume
yeah,
of people and, like, they're gone, but what's represents them is still there, and so,
yeah.
like you said, there's that constant reminder of the absolute worst things that people can do to each other.
For me, it's the bathtub of wedding rings because it's love, right? It's just all those little rings
Mm,
represent love, and it was just all that love removed.
jeez. Gonna just
Yeah.
start crying now.
I know, I have been crying like a quarter crying, trying to be like, "Don't make an awkward joke right now, Britt. Don't try to make yourself feel better with an awkward joke."
Yeah, that's how we cut the tension. So after he was liberated and he learned that everyone he loved was gone, that's when he started writing this book, Man's Search for Meaning. And then he became the executive director of the Vienna Neurological Polyclinic and remained in that role till 1971. And he taught, wrote, and lectured about logotherapy. So this book comes from a person who spent his career thinking about despair and then was thrown into one of the worst systems of human destruction the world has ever seen and then survived into a world where almost everyone he loved was gone. So that context is everything for him because when he talks about meaning, he's not talking about like cute motivational exercise. He's talking about the question of what remains when life has been shattered. Okay, so I would love to get into the scenes of the book and how he describes the meaning that he derived from them. So the very first scene when that he describes is people who were basically told, "Get out of your homes, get out of your businesses. You're going to a camp." People were packing, thinking like they didn't know what the camp life was going to look like. They all get hoarded onto this train. They're crammed together, and they get shipped off to a destination that they know about. They know where they're going, but they don't really know what's going to happen. So he's describing like the first psychological experience of being packed, like being afraid, not knowing what's going to happen, and the parts of the mind that are trying to convince yourself that maybe things aren't going to be as bad as you think about like what you're worried about. So he describes this as like a psychological phase of shock, and like he's not saying like people were brave. They were like, no matter what happens, we're gonna get through this together. And he's not like, just be zen and, hold it within yourself and you'll get through this. Like he's not talking about that. He's talking about like the real survival and through the mind about what's something that you're about to go into that's extraordinarily unbelievable. Because when something really terrible happens at first, people don't just become profound. Like they don't just become Buddha. They're not just like, oh, I shall rise above this horrible circumstance. Their nervous system goes into they fires, right? They freeze, they bargain, they scan for signs of like an escape, or they try to convince themselves like maybe this will be okay, maybe I misunderstood what's going to happen, or maybe there's going to be some sort of intervention, like someone's going to come around the corner at any moment and save me. Maybe I'll be spared. Like all these things that keep your mind just fighting through this horrendous circumstances. So he calls this the delusion of reprieve. And like this really shook me because I'm like, oh dang, I've definitely had this. Or you're just sitting there like, "Won't someone please stop this from happening? Like, won't someone come save me?" And you're just, like, in the pit of absolute despair wondering, like, "Why is this happening?" And you're just begging for something to save you. Like, Brett, this is such a human reaction like,
Yeah.
one of the worst experiences of your life. Like, when your world everything around you is collapsing, even if you look around, you're like, "Well, I still have my home, I still have my children," but everything around you may be collapsing in a way that's all the things that you built for yourself, your mind gives you something to keep going, a little bit, one more inch of air. Maybe this isn't happening. Maybe they didn't mean it. Maybe my family will come around. Maybe my church will love me if I just explain them like that healing fantasy. Maybe politicians won't vote for this law. Maybe my doctor will listen to me. Like something that just keeps your mind focused on that won't always be this way. Just something that keeps your mind is just like, this will not always be this way, right?
Mhm.
Something is like, it just won't let you live fully in this moment of sheer horror of shock. And so again, I don't want to compare queer rejection or family trauma to the Holocaust. That would be wrong. But to honor Frankl, he's describing something about the human nervous system under terror. Before we can make any meaning, we have to survive that initial shock. And so for queer people, this can be part of our spiritual story as well, because the first spiritual act is not clarity, like, oh, well, you reject me for being trans. Well, I'm going to rise above that and make meaning out of my life, right? The first spiritual act is just staying alive while the truth is unbearable, right? My
Right.
dad just rejected me when I told him that I'm queer. Well, maybe he'll come around, right?
Yeah.
And if it never comes around, you have survived that moment of the absolute worst shock of your life, and you will find someone else to love you in that way. You know what I mean? So that first round of shock really stood out to me as something that queer people can learn from, especially in your spiritual awakening. So then the next phase is selection. Like this is one of, I mean, it's hard to say this is one of the most horrifying realities of the camps because the whole damn thing was horrifying. But as soon as these people stepped off the train, they were immediately sorted into who was useful for labor and who was just going to go get killed. And he describes it because there had been rumors about this happening. And so he sort of knew like if you were even a little bit old, if you were even a little bit like you had a limp, if you looked the wrong way at someone, if you didn't look strong enough, if you were disabled, you were just immediately like you gone. Like they did not care. And so for him, he like described how he stood up straighter and he actually kept with him the papers of his work, his logotherapy work. And so he like scrunched them up and tried to keep them in his shirt and they hold them there while standing strong and looking fit enough to like not be immediately murdered. And he described like the sheer terror of that experience. And it was in the moments where like now not only have they had their entire life stripped away from them, been shipped here and now they're nothing but a number. They're actually just being reduced to being a human body that's useful. And it's not about who they are or what they know or what their life is or who they love or anything about them. Their education, their experience, nothing. All that matters is can you work? Like, can you physically work? And so that just like strips people down. Um, and it talks about oppression in a concrete way because oppression is not just an idea. It's not just prejudice or someone having a bad opinion or thinking like, "Hey, I don't acknowledge you." Oppression becomes real when institutions get the power to like sort bodies, like to name and classify bodies, not people, but their bodies, and decide like who's useful and disposable, who's normal and who's dangerous, whose life belongs in the system and who's useless. And again, it's based on your physical body, not on this wholeness of being human. And like this, the Nazi genocide is a very specific like, historical horror. But the question of classification is deeply relevant to modern life, especially queer people and the intersecting identities of being disabled and neurodivergent. So, how many queer, trans, and neurodivergent people know what it feels like to have an institution claim authority over who they are?
Not a one.
Yeah,
Not a
no
s
one.
not a single. What are you talking about?
Like government documentation, like going and getting your passport and having to like go back through it and changing your name, giving like letting them give you authority about who you are. School policy, like well, the school policy says I can't let you change your name and your pronouns. Like, well, sorry, but that's who I am. Your policy doesn't
Yeah.
dominate me. Medical file, your psychiatric diagnosis, church membership, like border agent, prison placement. Like I could list 1,000 ways in which systems determine who you are because of your body and not because of who you are as a person. So when Frankl writes about selection, it's really one of the deepest warnings throughout all of human history. We need to be really careful when a system starts treating people as categories before it treats them as whole human beings. Because the moment a system stops seeing a full person, it becomes easier to harm them. So then the next scene is about being stripped of everything. So the prisoners arrive, their clothes are taken, their belongings are taken, their hair is shaved, their privacy is gone, they're replaced by numbers. We've talked about the shoes, the rings, everything about their previous identity becomes invisible or gone, just erased, except for who they know who they are, right? They know who they are. But it's hard to hold on to that when everything is taken from you. And so Frankl talks about this being one of the most painful like parts of his story because I had said he was working on logotherapy and Nazis took everything. So they didn't just take his personhood, but they took what he was working on, his work, his mind, and his future. So to him, like, they absolutely just took it all. But part of him wanted to still contribute to the world. And so that desire to reconstruct his manuscript actually became what helped him stay oriented towards life outside of camp. Like the whole entire time he was thinking about rewriting his manuscript. He was thinking about how he could add to it, how he could build to it. And I mean, you can't say that that's why he survived, because there are tons of people there who had something to look forward to who did not survive. But for him, he felt like having that to focus on helped his mind get through it. And for many queer people, like, we know what it's like to like have our personhood be denied and tried to take from us. And so it's just important for us to take from this that what someone takes from you is not the whole story. If the world takes away the signs of who I am, how to like, do I still know who I am? And like for me, when I transitioned, that was the thing. Like, when I am alone, naked in the mirror, do I see who I want to be reflected back to me? That was the only thing that mattered. Who am I to me? And then the delusion of reprieve. I want to come back to that because this is one of the phrases that helps us understand trauma. Frankl uses it to describe the strange hope that appears when someone is facing disaster, the belief that somehow, even in the last second, things may turn out differently. But I think we need to handle that with tenderness. But from the outside, sometimes people judge hope. They'll say, like, why did you stay? Like, why did you believe them? Why did you keep trying? Like,
Yeah.
did you really think your parents were going to change? Like, did you really
Yeah.
think the church was going to accept you? And we kind of get judgy. But Frankl says that hope can be an important part of survival, even if it's not realistic. Sometimes the mind can't take the whole truth at once. Like the nervous system gives us a softer version of reality until we're ready to face it. Like our body goes through something deeply traumatic, but our minds are like, we're going to take this bite by bite. We're just going to take this piece,
Yeah.
one piece at a time. And in queer life, that's pretty common. We often have to like stay in places that we are hoping will become safe. Like if we keep explaining ourselves, if we keep just, I don't need to wear my rainbows to church. I'll just, I'll wear black, and then maybe they'll be more comfortable with me being queer, right? We stay and we push and we hope and we believe, and sometimes it does change. Sometimes things do change, but sometimes they don't. And part of becoming free is learning the difference between hope that keeps us alive and hope that keeps us trapped.
Yeah. I know a little bit about that. Anyways.
Yeah. And it's like, well, at a certain point, when is it evident that it's not going to change? When is it evident that
Yeah.
you are no amount of shrinking and explaining and hoping and praying is going to change
Yeah.
the circumstances?
And it's funny because something I struggle with that is it's like there are people who I know they have like good hearts, right? Like I know there's something in there that's like really, really good. It's just hidden under like brainwashing from the media or being isolated on a small island where like you're surrounded by people who have these sort of ignorant ideas. But like I know in your core, like I know you. That's not who you are. That's just these filters that have been placed on you because of like where you are at. And you have to choose like yourself. Like, will I feel better about myself and will I feel better being myself if I keep trying to help the situation, or is it better for me to walk away? And it's such an
Yeah.
individual choice.
And you can't change other people. You can only change yourself. And so
Yeah.
if by being yourself, people aren't willing to change to meet you there,
Mm.
it's only going to hurt you to like pull yourself back to a place that they are comfortable with you in. Like you're editing yourself
Right.
or hurting yourself in order to stay in their
Yeah.
world because they refuse to meet you where you are.
Yeah. Yeah. And you should never, I want to be clear, you should never have to change anything about yourself in order to feel comfortable around people. That's not what I meant by that. But like, I do think it's important that we build bridges and not burn them down with people because like being aggressive, which is something I'm learning, being aggressive with who I am, even though when I know I'm right about a topic, like whether or not Aunt Jemima is racist, like being aggressive when I am trying to explain the reality of a situation is not going to help. So like making sure when I'm trying to communicate with who I am or where I stand or the realities of a situation, maybe giving the opportunity for that person to walk over that bridge on their own, like giving opportunities for them to come around instead of just like burning down the bridge, I guess, I think is
Mm.
a helpful way to go about that.
Yeah, and as far as like shrinking or like editing yourself to make others feel more comfortable, that can sometimes be personal. Like I love to wear rainbows and I love to wear like shirts that are
Mhm.
like I fucking love being trans. Like I'm trans, go eat a dick. Like I don't care what you think. Like I'm very much
Yeah.
in your face about
Terry
being
showed up at my
queer.
house. Terry showed up at my house a couple weeks ago with like an indigenous sweater on. It was like trans, like trans-colored shoes, you had, like, a rainbow lanyard on. There was something like, you were wearing some shirt that said
I think
I
it's
can't
this one.
remember. It was what does it say? Down with the gender binary? Yeah, and it was just
Yeah.
like, you were just a walking ally flag.
Exactly. But there are times where I know that, well, 2 things. 1, I don't always feel like I have the energy to deal with the people who don't like that, even if it's just a
Yeah,
energy or attention or
totally.
glances or whatever. And sometimes it's like, I know that I could actually make headway with the person if I dial it back a bit and
Yeah,
I don't throw it in their face so much, and then I can actually connect with them and they don't have their defenses up, and then I can build that bridge with them then, and then they can walk over it and meet me in my land of rainbows, you know?
yeah. It's better over here.
Yeah, exactly.
It's way better.
Sometimes they just need to see that the troll under the bridge is actually not who they think it is. It's actually just someone who's like them.
Yeah. It's, like, a lot of people are trapped. They're trapped, right?
Well, I think the next piece is going to be even more, it's going to speak to you even more, Brit. It's apathy as survival.
Mhm. Is this chapter is just like Brit, about Brit.
Well, this actually is really profound for this current moment because with all the like stuff we're constantly seeing on Facebook and all the constant misinformation, basically what Frankl describes is how prisoners become numb because after shock comes apathy. People are like specifically in the book, but also in current times, people are seeing an onslaught of violence, sickness, death, people being humiliated, going hungry,
Mhm.
and like a cruelty that's like so constant that they can't keep in touch with fully feeling how it feels to experience that, to see that
Yeah,
all the time.
yeah. That's just life right now. That's life right now. Like, everything going on in Palestine and, like, everything like, I can only focus on what I can
Nice.
focus on. Ice? Yeah. Like,
Could you imagine if we were reacting with our full emotional feeling with every time we see a news report on stuff like that? Like you want to
yeah,
feel it, you do feel it in your head and your heart, but you can't actually feel
yeah.
it in your body. It's too much.
It's too much. I had to stop watching the news because I'm going through a lot of personal changes and, like, I have to focus on my energy on what I can control.
Exactly. And Frankel's not saying like you just decide that you don't care about these things anymore. He's actually saying that our body's survival response to this amount of trauma is to shut down. It is
Yeah.
our physiological reaction to experiencing and witnessing this much amount of cruelty and violence and death. So he's not saying that like this numbness is a moral failure. He's not saying people who don't care or have or apathy are
Yeah.
like immoral. They don't care. He's saying it's an actual survival response. Like, apathy isn't the absence of care, it's actually what happens when you care, but when caring at full volume would destroy you.
It's honestly what I kind of this is an opinion that's gonna be controversial. I think because of the Epstein files going on in the States, I honestly think that's why they started bombing Iran, was just to overwhelm people with so much shock and pain that they would stop looking into the rich pedophiles that were in the US, just to overload the system. Like, there's too much going on, we can't focus on this right now.
Well, it is like Steve Bannon admitted it multiple times that their method is shock and awe because when you
Yeah,
cannot have, not only can your body's not physically react to it, but we don't have the mental capacity to actually form a proper reaction to respond and to deal with it when it's just
yeah,
constant, 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 constant. We just don't have
yeah.
the capacity. But how this applies like for queer people, like people often misunderstand like queer numbness. Like they ask, "Why are you so distant? Like, why did you cut off your mom and dad? Like, why don't you trust people? Like, why are you so guarded? Why do you make so many dark jokes?"
Like, when our friend Pat got cancer, and he'd gone through a couple rounds of chemo, and he was just a waif compared to, like, this big bear he was before he went in the hospital, and I was like, "It's a little dramatic sort of fat camp you had to go to, eh, Pat?" Like, instead of, like, being there in the sadness with him, I was like, "I'm gonna make a messed up joke."
So yeah, the truth is that like the reason why that happens to us, why we kind of have apathy or why we make jokes and stuff like that is because our body is learned. Like it's learning how to react every time it's hurt and it's learning
Mhm.
what helped it survive. And so I know for like you and I,
Yeah.
humor helped us survive those really, really dark times. And that's actually one of the tenets of meaning for Frankel that I'll get into at the end is what gives you joy and meaning.
Regulation. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I've actually found that when I'm really, really dysregulated and masking high, that's when jokey Mr. Joker comes out, and I just, like, quip jokes the whole time, like, I can't be anything but like, "Hey, hey." It's like, that is just my coping mechanism.
Totally. Get me in a room full of people I don't know, and I'm gonna make 1,000 of the weirdest, most ridiculous jokes.
I'm
Yeah.
gonna create a safe space for myself by using what makes me comfortable and seeing who can
Mhm.
stay in that with me.
Yeah, if you don't laugh at my dark joke, I immediately know we're not gonna connect. Find me funny or you're cut.
And so Frankel's basically saying that this numbness is a scar and it's protection. And it's a mind's way of keeping a person alive until feeling coming back to your body becomes possible again.
What does feeling in your body mean, Terry? I have been in survival mode for 38 years.
Well, this is new for me as well. Like, I had no idea what it meant, but I've noticed that with my therapist is basically when I start explaining something, I'm like, "This happened, and this happened, and this happened," and they're like, "What is happening in your body?" And I'm like, "What do you mean?" They're like,
Yeah,
"What are you feeling?" And I'm like, "I'm tense.
right.
My breathing is tight. My chest is tight. My butt cheeks are clenched." And they're like, "Okay, that's what you need to notice." And you notice that your body is tensing up. And so now
Mm,
when I'm like not sleeping at night or I'm struggling to fall asleep and I'm like fidgeting with my hair, I'll notice my butt cheeks are clenched and my body is tight and my stomach is tight. And so I'll try to focus on my body and I'll try to focus on relaxing those parts and taking deep
right.
breaths.
Yeah.
And that brings me back into this moment, into my body, into relaxation instead of just like in my mind.
I started getting annoyed at my therapist for that when she's like, "What are you noticing in your body?" I'm like, "Yeah, my jaw is clenched and my shoulders are up. I know." Yeah, I should recognize that by now.
It's like a mindfulness thing, but it's
Yeah.
really part of the, like, nervous system function is your body is telling you, like, your body is your highest self, your body is your, like, ancient DNA, your core truth, and it's telling you whatever's going on inside your mind or your physical environment right now
Mhm.
isn't safe. It's not your body's like, "I'm not
Yeah.
safe, I'm not safe."
Yeah.
And so it's trying to tell you, it's trying to say, like, "Pay attention to me. I'm trying to tell
Yeah.
you that you're not
Yeah.
happy, you're not safe."
So don't think about things sometimes. Sometimes just listen. Like you really do need to listen to your body. It remembers. I went to go get a pap. Sidebar. I went to go get a pap and my body remembered, hey, I was just assaulted in a clinic like this in this position. And my body completely tensed up before my brain like recognized what was happening. And how do we become better at listening to that, Terry? Does he get into that?
I mean, not specifically, but he does explain why that happens and like how
Hmm.
your brain and body are they're not in sync. Like your brain is interpreting what your body is
Yeah.
telling it.
So your body's like an antenna.
Yeah, your body will experience something first, and then by the time your brain understands what it's telling it, it's already experienced it. So then your mind is trying to react to
That
something you're
sucks.
already experiencing. It's in constant communication. And that's why it kind of feels like you have a higher self and like a lower self, like you have a body and then you have a mind. And through
Hmm.
time, it's not simultaneous. It's a ongoing relationship. And like on that, like what your body is telling you and how it affects your mind. One of the things that Frankel really talks about a lot is hunger. Hunger is not just like a physical detail in the book, like people are hungry all the time. He describes that
Hmm.
hunger actually changes the way people think and what gives them meaning and how they talk and what they dream about.
So drive. Do you mean drive, or are we talking about like actual hunger right now?
Like actual hunger.
Oh, okay. I thought this was a metaphor. Carry on.
Because in the camps, people were basically given, like, 1 chunk of bread and, like, thin
Ugh.
soup once a day.
Yeah.
Like, they were just
Yeah.
constantly, constantly hungry. And so, like, he would explain, like, he had a piece of bread. Did he s Some people save it in their pockets for later, and, like and some people are just like, "I'm gonna eat as much as I can now and feel full," and some people are like, "I'm just gonna nibble on it all day long," and so it becomes,
Yeah.
like, part of their story of, like, how do I survive using this one tiny scrap of bread, and what is like, some of the soup had, like, peas and stuff would sink to the bottom, and so some of the prisoners would some of the guards would serve soup from the top, and so you'd be like, "Oh, I want the bottom soup with some extra peas," and, like, "How do I get myself close to this guard so that he'll give me, bottom soup and not top soup, not watery soup?" And so you described how, like, a body that's starving doesn't have the same freedom as a body that's fed, and this is, like, one of the places where Frankl is more materially grounded than some other forms of, like, philosophy and maybe even than some people remember, because people often quote him as saying, like, it's just about attitude, mind over matter. Like, it doesn't matter that you were hungry. It matters that you think about food. But For him, he was like, actually, body shapes the mind, like we were saying. Cold shapes your mind, hunger shapes your mind, being tired or exhausted shapes your mind, being sick or
Mhm.
in pain shapes your mind. So, a person who's confined to a wheelchair isn't going to find meaning from thinking about hiking, right? They're going to find meaning from the circumstances that they're in, their material conditions. So it's important when we like framing that when we talk about freedom, because sometimes spiritual people like to talk about it as like, it's just about intent, choose joy, find purpose. But Frankl's book is just, it's about bodies, beaten bodies, sick bodies, bodies doing forced labor. Like they really, for him, centers on the experience that you're physically going through and then how your mind copes with that. So I can bring this into like queer spirituality by thinking like meaning isn't separate from material life. A queer person's ability to feel hope is shaped by whether they're housed or whether they have food
Yeah.
or whether they have access to gender affirming care or whether they have community or family.
Yeah, how do you focus on anything if you're just trying to focus on how do I get through the next 2 minutes?
Yeah, and I think any spirituality that ignores the material conditions people are in can become pretty cruel because you can't tell someone to, like, go find meaning when ignoring the fact that they're hungry or unsafe or unhoused or being denied care. And I know for, like, myself, being trans, it gives me meaning because I've been through something and I wanna share that, and I'm fully recognize the fact that I've only been able to actually embrace that and find that meaning for myself because I'm now in a very secure environment where I know that I'm surrounded by love, I have a home, I have a job, and I've constantly said that, like, the only reason why I was able to go to the doctor and get care is because I had the privilege of being able to drive, being able to phone, being able to take the day off work, being able
Yeah.
to afford care, and so I know for myself that meaning that I found for myself would not have ever happened if I didn't have those material conditions to allow it. So, I just really wanna ground this in, like, body and mind together. Like, meaning it's almost shaped through the body's experience and your contextual experience, your material conditions. And so, like, just speaking about the material conditions, I wanna talk about the shoes again because for me, like, one of the most unforgettable details of the book is the shoes, and I don't know if I just have, like, a thing about feet and shoes because, like, I remember
You've
watching
always loved shoes, to be honest with you.
it's like socks too, like, I hate having wet socks. My partner doesn't like to or my partner can't really physically towel off after a shower, so they'll just, like, come out of the shower wet, and I'll, like, step in their water on the ground, and I'm like, "No, like, wet socks."
Very neurodivergent of you.
Yeah, and, like, I remember watching, like, World War II documentaries and how they emphasize, like, socks.
Basically the same thing.
They just constantly emphasize
Trench
socks, like,
foot?
I just yeah, yeah, like, it's
Yeah.
haunted me, Brit, it's
Yeah.
haunted me, these socks.
That'd be the worst part.
It it this it's what he really did emphasize, like, again, focusing on the body, he talked a lot about the shoes, the food and the shoes. So, a lot of folks, they were given one, like, shitty pair of slippers, and then they were just sent out to work all the time. So, it was in the snow, in the heat, it didn't matter, they were just wearing these shitty shoes, and so some people didn't even have shoes. Some people went out in bare feet in the snow, and, like, for them, bad shoes was causing wounds, then those wounds can become infected, and then it can cause death. So it's like it's not just a matter of like comfort or like neurodivergent socks, water and socks. In this case, it was like it was about survival. And like that kind of just like cuts right through spiritual abstraction. Like some people want meaning to be like grand, like a calling, a purpose, like a destiny, a divine voice, like something higher. But that kind of negates what people are really struggling or suffering under their material conditions. Like how can someone become this transcendent guide when they are unhoused or when they are completely unsupported or when they need medication and they can't get. So how did those people find spiritual meaning in and so for in this particular case, sometimes that meaning can be as small and practical as like, do your shoes fit?
Yeah.
Do you have food? Did someone bring you food when you were hungry? Did someone help you get medication or drive you to your appointment or help you choose your name, like your new name? Check on you after surgery. Like after I like having you come visit me in the hospital and having my friends drive me out to Vancouver because I couldn't drive myself. It was like so meaningful to me and I felt so connected and like cared about and like almost like divinely blessed because I had these humans in my life who cared enough about me to take their time out of their day, spend it with me, care for me. And like, maybe it sounds dramatic, but this is queer spirituality to me. Like, I'm finding meaning and I'm finding almost God through the love I have with my friends.
It's really beautiful. Did you feel God when I walked in and your bloody underwear were around your knees?
I did. God's a jokester. I was like, I see you. We got humor. But like it's
Uh,
spiritual connection, and that connection to yourself and your higher self and that deep love of human nature is not always like being zen in like not speaking for a week in a Buddhist
mhm.
garden, like whatever. It's about the person showing up when you're getting your catheter removed. Uh,
Comedic timing.
yeah, the person who texts you back saying, "I believe you" when you come out or when you tell them about your
Yeah.
experience, right? It's
Yeah.
that deep connection to someone else, to something physical, something practical, that is sacred too.
If I can, I don't know why I'm asking. I'm going to interject. Be authentically yourself, and the right people will show up and be around you because, like, whatever frequency you're at is who you're going to attract. And some of those people, like, you will grow with and you will learn with, and some of those people are just there to help you through like certain things. But just be yourself, and the right people will show up. And then when you're going through hard times, they'll be there for you and you can be there for them. And like that's how you create meaningful friendships is by removing that mask and being yourself. Like I don't have friendships that are surface level. I only have friendships where I can walk in on somebody getting a catheter removed and we just cackle laughing because of the like divine comedic timing of it, right? Like it's good for your soul to be yourself and be around those soul friends who are supposed to be around you because they get you and they see you.
Exactly, and that's actually what Frankl talks about. He talks about the prisoners who comforted others, who
Mhm.
were there for each other even though they were going through the exact same horrendous experience. They
Yeah.
were still able to choose to be there for each other. He writes about the people who gave away their last piece of bread. And like when you think about it, well, if you're starving, why would you give away bread? But he
Mhm.
used it to make a point about human goodness. But I wanna be careful because I don't wanna, like, make this a story that, like, people's suffering isn't morally required. Like, I don't wanna be like, "Oh, if you have something to give, give it." People are allowed to survive. They're allowed to keep their last piece of bread. They're allowed to have
You have to put
limits.
your mask on before you can help others, right?
Yeah, and it's the same thing for me. Like, I'm allowed to say I'm not gonna wear my rainbows today because I'm exhausted and I don't wanna have to deal with this. I don't wanna have to
Yeah.
he's not saying that because I find meaning in being publicly trans that I have to always be publicly trans. Like, people are allowed to have limits, and you don't have to
Mhm.
constantly give. So he's not saying that, like, people who don't give or can't give are bad or morally inferior or aren't spiritually, like, awakened. But
Yeah.
he's saying that, like, people who do give in those moments it's just saying something about the human spirit that sometimes a person giving their bread can actually get more life out of giving their bread to someone and helping them
Absolutely.
survive than actually just eating it themselves. Like, so the way people go on, the things that give them life and purpose and meaning can sometimes be more than physical, and sometimes they need to keep the physical. So it just speaks to the choices that people make and that brutality, like the brutality that you're going through, doesn't always succeed in destroying like human spirit and human consciousness.
And if you're a really giving person, because I'm a really giving person and I always say takers find me. And I can see that in
Mm.
my daughter. I can see she's got that really giving personality and she'll bring all of her allowance money to go to Snack Shack and like pay for everyone to have snacks.
Aw.
Right? I know it's really sweet, but, like, I'm also trying to be like, you know, because it's like I saw that in myself of, like, I just gave and gave and gave and gave, and one thing I learned that might be helpful to other givers out there is sometimes by not giving, you're giving other people the opportunity to step up and give, and that's
Mm.
good for their soul.
Yeah, and I don't wanna romanticize the fact that, like, marginalized people often have to care for each other because the systems fail us,
Yeah.
and I don't wanna be like,
It's true, though. We gotta help each other because like, they're just out for themselves and their pockets. Sorry, that's probably gonna go against whatever you're gonna say.
No, no, it's true. The systemic
Yeah.
failure for marginalized people should make us angry, but
Yeah,
there's
it
something
does.
still sacred in the care that we provide each other. So it's not like, "Oh, I constantly have to care for people around me, and this is bad." It's like, it's bad that the system makes us have to care for each other, and it's sacred that I'm here for my queer community. There's, like, meaning in a person saying, "I don't have much, but I will not let you disappear alone."
Terry gave me a sticker for my birthday, and it says, I'm going to cry. It says, "There is another in the fire standing next to me." And sorry, I'm going to cry, but like knowing that there are people that no matter what are there for me. Like, you just gotta find them, and we're there, like us. You have us now.
Exactly. And that was, my that realization that, like, I'm not alone, there are other people standing in this with me who care and care about the same things as me and care about me. It was profound, it changed my life, and just have people like you, Britt, show up in my life for me over and over again, despite going through wild things and believing wild things and behaving in wild ways, like, just to have people be like, "It doesn't matter. You're still you, I still love you, and we're gonna get through this." Like, that was so healing for me.
Ditto.
That thread of loving each other and being connected to each other, like for Frankel, that's kind of one of the core tenets of meaning and purpose. And for him, getting through it, as I mentioned earlier, was his wife, thinking of his wife. So he like described how he would be out in the snow, working to the bone, laying like rails and track lines for the Nazis, and like he's exhausted and doesn't know how he's gonna get through this. And so he starts thinking about his wife, the person he loves so deeply. He doesn't know if she's alive or if he'll ever see her again, but in his mind, he sees her. He sees her face. He speaks to her. I'm gonna cry again. And so from that experience, he reaches like one of the central insights of his book that love is the ultimate and the highest goal. And in that, it's like a super short quote, but it carries so much because frankly, he's not talking about like love is just like I love you, like love you, babe.
Yeah. Yeah.
He's talking about like this one of the deepest sources of meaning available. Like, love in those moments of despair, it's not about like, it's not dependent on possession, like, my wife's waiting for me. I have to do stuff for her, like, I'm her husband. It's like it's just like it's a way of staying connected to humanity, like, the deepest parts of being human. When you're surrounded by this deep cruelty and torture and death, you don't feel like there's any humanity there. So, where's the thread to humanity? And that's in your heart when you think about the people that you just love. Like, he doesn't even describe love as anything but love. He just says love is it describes it as love. It's kind of like a way to see more than the suffering and a way of seeing and even being seen inwardly. Like these people may see me as a number and they may not give a shit about who I am or anything, but I know someone out there does. I know my wife who knows me deeply, who knows who I am, who knows my heart, knows my values. She holds my truth in her heart. While I'm in here suffering, being a nobody, she's out there holding me in her heart, and I'm here holding her in my heart. And I will never let her wholeness or humanness be erased by anyone because I have it. Right? I'm protecting it. And like queer people do that. And the people who love queer people do that for each other, right? We queer people and trans people are often painted as like dirty and dangerous, like immoral, like fake, sinful, whatever. But basically what Frankel's saying is that because you love me, Britt, you see me as a whole person. So no matter how many people out there try to dehumanize me, my wholeness is lives in you and it lives in me.
Mhm.
And I can rest knowing that my whole humanness is not being erased because it's living out in the people that love me and that I love.
Yeah. And like, no matter what you say or what you do, I know you. And I know like your intention would never be to hurt because you live with so much love. It's just something that didn't get translated correctly or something, right? Like when you have deep, meaningful, close friendships because you know somebody's heart, they can never really do wrong because like you and I feel like you and I have that connection of like no matter what you like whatever you said or whatever you do, it's never based in hate because you live your life with so much love. And doing that is so important. Every decision we make, am I choosing like I'm going to be selfish in this moment, but that's because I'm choosing to love myself and honor myself in this moment, right? Like everything you do should have a basis of love because then it's hate or it's fear. And we're not being authentically ourselves if we're stuck in a fear trap or a hate trap or we're being manipulated by the media or like whatever it is. So how do we try to make every decision that's possible, and we're human and we will make mistakes, of course, but how do we try to make every decision based in love? Like how do we find love in everything?
I agree. And queer love, like when two people of the same sex love each other, like queer love is so often painted as like dirty or, like less than, like a less than type of love. But
Sometimes it's more than.
that's exactly it. Queer love is
Yeah.
sacred. Queer love
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
so much yeah, is actually sacred. It's not just like partnership love either. It's like love is elder care, friendship, chosen family, like a drag
Mhm.
mother, a lesbian
Yeah.
auntie, a gay person who's like you can stay here tonight. It's okay. If your parents kicked you out, I got you, boo. Like, that's queer
Yeah.
love. And it is absolutely sacred. And it's one of the ways that meaning enters our world. Like, oh, I lost my meaning because my parents rejected me. Well, I'm making new meaning amongst my new chosen family who love me for who I am.
Yeah. And I just want to say, as like a child of abuse, this really resonates with me in a lot of ways too, because I too have been like, I've had to have a chosen family. I want to clarify, I do have a lot of really, really awesome family on like one side. But because of the other side and us living so far apart, I've had to kind of create a chosen family. So I really resonate with a lot of that. I'm sure anybody can. Anyone can like replace queer with literally any other word that would describe
Yeah.
yourself, and I feel like you can relate to this.
I mean, my philosophy is that queerness applies to everyone because queerness is just not the prescribed status quo
Mhm.
identity, which literally no one is. Absolutely no one is just
Correct.
one status quo. So everyone, in my opinion, is queer, and I want anyone who's listening to this to understand that about themselves, that you choose what matters to you, what your life means to you, what it's made up of. And like, if you feel like my friend group and I are really tight, they're basically like my family. Well, you can decide that they're your family. That's your choice. You don't have
Yeah.
to be like, well, the world says that they're not my family because they're not my blood.
Oh, you're my brother, right? Like, you're my brother, right?
But yeah.
Not in like a Terry just did like the Black Power hand, but like not like that.
It was intrinsic. It was like automatic. Well, and there's beauty in that. There's like beauty in friendship, in laughter, in what you create together. And I find many folks who go through trauma also very like artistic and they like to create things that are
Mhm.
beautiful. And for Frankl, that beauty is a part of meaning, because like you're thinking about these prisoners who just went like who barely escaping death every single day, or being starved, tortured, like horrible experiences. You wouldn't think that if they saw a beautiful sunset that they would stop and look and enjoy it. You'd think that it would just be pure misery. But he points out like actually beauty is one of like the threads of meaning.
Yeah.
And there was a time where they were out in the snow again, like working themselves to the bone, starving. And there's a beautiful sunset, and they all just stopped and looked. And he noticed this, and he was like, "This sunset is giving them life, even though like it doesn't feed them.
Yeah.
It doesn't stop
Feeds your
any
soul.
violence." Yeah, it's not taking away any of your pain, but the beauty when it appears, it kind of reminds you that the circumstances you're in are not the whole universe. Like, there's more outside of what you're currently going through, and so it's like a window outside of your suffering, outside of your current moment. Like, and so, like, for queer folks, and again, this applies to everyone, you can make meaning and you can make beauty in places that, like, you wouldn't think it would. Like, drag, we do drag. Ballroom culture came out of major oppression, and dancing after experiencing something horrible, like putting on lipstick or makeup when the world doesn't want to see you for who you are. You still want to make yourself beautiful. You still want to, like, your trans body healing. There's ways in which beauty speaks to us that offers us a glimpse outside of our current moment, and it can interrupt our
Mhm.
despair.
One of the things I realized when I was going through my awakening is like every saying is like that was literally like there's a reason why this is a saying. Like that's literally them showing us
Mm,
like the way to live life and like stop and smell the roses. Like I get it now. I didn't get it before. I get it now. Like you have to stop and appreciate the small moments. Like step out of your routine for a second and just stop and appreciate the beauty of that sunset when you're in this horrible moment. Or like grab life when you can.
yeah, and if you are going too fast that you can't slow down enough to enjoy the beautiful moments that are around you, then you're probably very overwhelmed and probably not feeling super in the moment and
Mhm.
mindful, and you're probably suffering, and you may not notice it. But if you take the moment to if you reflect on that saying and you're like, "I've never taken the time to stop and enjoy a sunset or smell the roses or take in a painting or whatever," that might be an indication that you're kind of ignoring your body and your needs and what your body's telling you. 'Cause if you don't have time to appreciate beauty, then you're just too in your moment right now.
Yeah. Magic happens in like individual moments.
Beauty offers us a window outside of this current moment, not because like everything's fine, but because this moment is not the whole story.
It's beautiful. It's a part of the story. It's gonna get you where you need to go. Like how are you gonna use these difficult times to write your story, right? Like if all of our lives are books, what is this chapter gonna mean for you? Right? What is chapter 2 gonna look like? What
Mhm.
is chapter 3 gonna look like?
Exactly. And so these like everyday human experiences are really what Frankl discusses as the underlying sources of meaning. So we talked about this before, but humor, we got love, beauty, humor is one of them. It could sound like a really small thing, but humor really is an act of freedom, like a tiny act of freedom, because like you're oppressed, but you
Rebellion.
make a joke. Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
it is.
You're basically saying like, you have not captured me. Like, I will not let you get me. I will not let you dehumanize me. Like, you can shave my hair, take away everything I have, beat me, whip me, give me a number, take away my name, but I still have my mind, and you cannot take that away from me.
No. And one of the pain is just for right now, like physical pain. Physical pain is just for right now. Like, how do I get through the next minute? Like 1 minute at a time.
And, like, I swear queer people are experts in inventing humor as a survival technology, like camp, shade, like
Oh,
drag,
yeah.
like, you and even the world has created, like, memes and stuff, like, the ability to laugh at a world that keeps trying to make you feel ashamed about who you are and dehumanize you and strip you of your humanity. Humor is, like, the light for you, and it's spiritual. You're basically saying that pain does not get to be the only voice in the room. It
Mhm.
it can basically be a bridge to get you to tomorrow. It's almost like making your current circumstances absurd. Like someone screaming and yelling in your face, and you make a joke like, "Oh, you have garlic breath." Like it just kind of shifts your mind away from this is all that is. It's almost like a nervous
Yeah.
system reset.
Yeah, but, like, don't do that if someone's yelling at your face, that's just gonna make them angrier. You should probably just leave. Get
And
out.
it's all about how your mind can find freedom even in when everything else has been stripped from you. It can still
Mhm.
cling to like, you have no control over me. I have control over me. And then one of the things that we've talked about as well is the future is survival. Again, so he noticed like not only for himself and his work on logotherapy and like trying to remember his work and think about his future of his work, but he noticed that with other prisoners, if they had a thread connecting them to the future, they often would hold on psychologically a little longer. So like if they had a child or a piece of unfinished work,
Yeah.
a book, like a
Like
person.
ghosts, unfinished business.
Yes, I really like the saying, "There's a life waiting for you to live it."
Mhm.
And so Frankl actually borrows from Nietzsche. He says, and I quote, "He who has a why to live for can bear almost any how." Like I wanted to get that tattooed on me when I first read it. So yeah, it's like I said, it's from Nietzsche, who's a philosopher, but he used it as a key to survival. He's not saying that like having a why guarantees survival. Like there are people who died who have deep meaning and loved ones and purpose. So it's not like it's a shield. Like, no, don't kill me. I have meaning. But he's basically saying that when everything else collapses, having this future thinking can help the human spirit just continue to like want to survive. Because like when the present is not safe, it's not enough for you. You can imagine something that comes next. That this will not be forever. This torture won't be forever. So queer people imagining like I'm gonna move to the city as soon as I can,
Yeah.
or like as soon as I'm free, I'm gonna transition and change my name. Like I can't wait to go to my first pride and like get away from my parents. Like that's future thinking for a lot of
Yeah.
queer people. Basically saying like this is bad now, but it's not over yet. Like I'm not done yet. I have more to do outside of this circumstance.
Finding community is really, really important too. Like just like go on Reddit and be like, hey, like go in find a queer subreddit in your hometown or something and just like see if anybody wants to get together. Like if you don't have anybody, you can easily find people and people will easily raise their hand up to like support you because everybody's been there. Like every single person has been through a time in their life where they felt isolated and alone, and the people that are gonna raise their hand to, like, help you through that are gonna be the people you wanna be around. So, like, you just have to take that step of raising your hand to be like, "I need community right now," and you can create it.
Yeah. Sometimes our role in each other's lives is to help you know that tomorrow is believable. Like there's something there for you tomorrow. Like we need other people to tell us, to remind us that there's a tomorrow waiting for you, that we care about you. We're there. We've been
Yeah.
through that. And I'm telling you that it won't last forever. We need each other to like help us get through that sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah. I know that it can be difficult and it can be scary to kind of put your hand out there and to be vulnerable, but I have found when I am at my most vulnerable, that is when I form the best connections because then it's not two people talking to each other, it's two souls.
Right, you're not carrying the weight of, like, trying to keep up some sort of mask or impression, you're like, "I'm just here, I'm just
Yeah.
raw, honest,
Yeah.
vulnerable," and
Yeah.
then someone's like, "Oh, I see you, I'm here for you," and you're like, "Oh,
Yeah.
this is real connection," instead of, like,
Yeah.
"This
Yeah.
is fake
Nice weather we're having.
place." Yeah. It
Yeah.
makes sense. And that's actually what Frankl basically said when he gave his speech in the hut nearing the end. He like people were giving up, people were despairing, people were just like done. And he noticed that when they were at that point, that's when they usually like slipped into sickness and died. Like as soon as they
Yeah.
gave up and they weren't like they gave in to the torture and their bodies collapsed because their minds could no longer hold them up. And so he gave his speech to them. He didn't just say like, cheer up. He was like, there's someone out there outside of the camp. There's a future waiting for you. Who's out there who loves you? Who's out there who still needs you?
Mhm. Change the focus.
Yeah, and that gave people a rallying cry, like, "You're right, like, there's a tomorrow waiting outside of this camps, and my loved ones are waiting for me outside of this, and I have to keep pushing to make it through," and this is, like, such a common thing for queer people, you know? You lose belonging, you lose family, whatever, but there's something more out there
Yeah.
besides them waiting for you. There's other friends, there's other people, and, like, that's yeah, there's meaning outside of that.
Yeah, you get to build what that looks like for you, which is kinda cool because like, everyone's dealt the hand of cards that is your family, and all of us have a lot of pretty crappy cards in our in our hand, right? Like, but
Mhm.
being able to build that on your own, even though we would have liked to have been dealt a better hand, like, we can't control that, and we can control who we surround ourselves and the purpose we have, so how do we do that in a way that's authentic to ourselves and is maybe not who we wanna be, but who we are, right? Like, who am I, and how do I build this life of people and support around me that resonates with that?
Yeah, and Frankl actually argues that it's not who am I, but it's who do I wanna be, and he's saying we choose who we are in the circumstances that we find ourselves in. And it's not we don't have like this physical this permanent state of who we are-ness that we were born into and will forever remain. It is like in every circumstance, who are you choosing to be? And so like he talked about like you're not always free to be in the circumstances you're in, but you are always free to choose your attitude. And like that can be so misused and oversimplified a lot. But he's saying that like you don't choose like oppression, fascism, or trauma, but you can choose will I become cruel? Will I abandon my values? Will I let the system tell me who to be? Will I surrender my humanness, my wholeness, the memory of the people I love? Will I give up something of me that still knows the truth? So that's kind of what Frankel's talking about. He specifically talks about like again prisoners and camps and the circumstances that they find themselves in. Like someone chooses to be the person who hands the bread. Like you are not free
Mhm.
to get out of that to go and buy bread and hand it out to everyone, but you are free to choose like who am I in this moment? Am I gonna be the one who supports this person or ignores them? Am I gonna be the one who tells them that they're loved when I see they're struggling, or am I gonna just ignore them and do my own business? Like, who do I choose to be in each circumstance, and how does it build up who I am as a person as I know myself to be? How does it build to my meaning?
Right. Do you find you actually have a choice in those situations? Because, like, a couple weeks ago, I was stuck behind a recycling truck, and this guy, was also stuck, and he, like, got out and he started yelling at the people just doing their job, and, like, before I could think about it, I was already outside of my vehicle telling this guy, like, "They're just doing their job, like, calm down. You can just turn your car around and go around the block rather than stand here and wait and yell at these men doing their jobs." Like, I didn't have any control over myself when situations like that happen. It's just like out of body, like become the voice of
Well, that's what I was about to ask you. I was like, "Britt, did you stay in your body?"
it's like I don't have a choice. Like there is no choice there. It's just
That's
I'm doing it.
My I mean, I don't know, I was gonna say my therapist, but now I don't know, but it's nervous system activation, like, what seeing these people seeing this injustice, this man yelling and screaming at people who are just doing their jobs, your nervous system was activated, and you went into, like, fight or fright or whatever, and you chose fight, and you're like,
Yes.
who you are who your nervous system has trained you to be is this person who stands up for injustice, like, automatically, it becomes who you are automatically, and if that's in line with who you wanna be, then you're good. But if you're like, "I wish I didn't do that, I wanna choose differently," then you can choose differently. You kinda go through the process of, like, "What caused me to do that? What was going on in my body?" And then the next time that circumstance comes up, you recognize, like, "My blood is boiling, and I just need to get up and fight." And so
No,
then you start to, like,
it wasn't a half
rewire.
second. There was no time for me to process anything. It was like like a split second after he got out of his car and started talking. I was like
Well,
in
a couple of
between.
things. One, Your nervous system is currently carrying a lot, so to expect your
Mm,
nervous system to have space to give your mind time to think doesn't
mhm,
really reflect the current overwhelm that you're in and your nervous system's
mhm,
in. And then also you train your nervous system. Like for me, I'm super non-confrontational. And so to train my nervous system that confrontation is okay and that I'm like to like let my body relax so that I can actually stand up for myself when I need to. I'm choosing much
mhm.
lower barrier nervous system like resets. So standing up for myself in much smaller areas helps my nervous system rewire.
Right. You know, this awesome guy got me this hat once that said, like, "Make bigots afraid again," and I think that's just what like, I've just been trying to live by that. It was Terry.
Exactly. So yeah, he talks about after liberation. For him, it wasn't just as simple as like, prisoners are free, the music swells, end of story. It's not that simple. Like a liberated prisoner couldn't just immediately feel joy. They felt numb, like some sense of unrealness, disconnected from the world. They didn't like they had themselves stripped from them. So like how do they just walk back into like knowing who they are and the world that's different now? So they had to relearn how to feel and discover who they were and make new relationships and so, like, again, back to the body, it's like freedom can arrive before the body knows how to feel free. Like, your nervous system's literally still trapped in that place of, like, cruelty and oppression, like, you don't just automatically are like, "I'm free, I'm good, all my traumas are gone." Your body literally holds on to those traumas and creates memories and forms, like, patterns, which is what we're talking about with your car injustice, and so, like, it's important for queer people to know that because, like, you may have accepted yourself as queer and eventually moved out of your family's home, but that doesn't mean that you're gonna, like, now walk through the world whistling Dixie, feeling free as a bird. Your nervous system's gonna see that same traumatic rejection in everyone, even if they're
Mhm,
not actually rejecting you because you learn that pattern and your body's learned how to react to this, like, sense of injustice, and so, when we see queer people who's like, "Oh, it's that queer person who's just constantly offended by everything." Well, like, maybe that's because they lived a really shitty life who of people constantly offending them, and they have not yet repatterned their nervous system to know that that's not the truth for them anymore, right?
mhm.
So, like, freedom is a process of slowly returning back to yourself, to your mind, to your body, to who you really are, what you're doing now. And Frankl also says, like, there's a bitterness to it. People after liberation, the survivors returned to a world that could not understand what they had been through. People are like,
Yeah,
"Ah, it's just the Holocaust, like, get over it." Like, it was hard for us out of the Auschwitz too, like, we were struggling too, like, it wasn't just you prisoners, like, people would actually say
yeah.
that to them.
I've been at I've been at meals where it was people whose families were on the, like, other side, like, the losing side of the war, and it was, conversations about how difficult their lives were or their families' lives were as farmers or whatever, and it's sometimes it's not about you.
Yeah, and that it's really lonely. Like, it's lonely to have gone through, like, this really unique
Yeah,
experience to, like, want to be seen by what you've been through and have people be like,
yeah,
"It was hard for us too," like, super dismissive,
yeah.
and it comes with grief and bitterness and, like, looking around the world to be like, "My world ended and your world kept going, and I'm bitter about that." And, like, for a lot of queer people, people just want to see us be joyful. They're like, "Oh, you're free, we're good now, you got rights, like, just go have your pride and shut up." But, like, there is a lot of grief that comes with all these years of being suffering from cruelty and being ignored and having our right like our humanity stripped from us. And we can't just be like, "Oh, we're good. We're just gonna go party and have drag stuff now." Like we're living in through this bitterness as well. And so,
Mhm,
Frankl reminds us that survival has an afterlife. And spiritually, we need places where people are allowed to bring that story, not just like the good parts and the happy parts and the healed parts, but like the hard parts that make people
mhm,
uncomfortable. And finally, he rests this book on logotherapy and that existential vacuum. So he says human beings need meaning, and when people lose meaning, they fall into an emptiness. And for queer spirituality, it's really applicable because when people leave religion, they're like, "You're free now. You're good." But if religion gave you your songs, your holidays, your rituals, your community, like your morale, like your moral language, like your center, then when you leave or when you're rejected, you have like this massive empty space. So it's important to name that, like to name the ache that leaving doesn't like when you ache to go back, it doesn't mean you should. It just means that that's what gave you meaning, and now you have to find something new. You find a new ritual, a new way to belong, a new language, right? So to summarize, like what I took from this book, it's when you're queer and you've lost that meaning, when you're trying to create new meaning, you can start by asking yourself, like, what rituals actually help me feel alive? What what part of my communities hold my truth? What kind of prayer is possible after like escaping from the shame? what helps me connect back with my body, and how do I create new meaning when that old meaning is gone?
And like some rituals I can recommend, aromatherapy is really powerful. Like just finding a smell can reset your nervous system. Like when I'm on a ferry and I'm going to Thetis and I can just smell that very specific ocean smell, it's like a dopamine release. Like find a smell, whether it's a forest, whether it's an essential oil, anything, like a specific incense, like aromatherapy, getting out into nature and like breathing in oxygen,
Mhm.
real oxygen from trees can do amazing things for your body.
These are the 3 ways that Frankl says people basically find meaning. The first is through creating or doing something like art, work, parenting, writing, building something, like you working on something towards something,
Mhm.
making something that didn't exist before. That's one of the ways that people find meaning. So for queer people, that could be like making new community or building a new church or something that's meaningful
Mhm.
to you in your new life. The second way he says people create meaning is through experience or like through loving someone or something. So through beauty, nature, art, truth, wonder, but especially love. And then the third way is through the attitude that we take towards unavoidable suffering, the suffering we're already going through that we can't change. How do we wrap our mind around it? That's another way people make meaning. So if suffering can be changed, changed it, change it. If harm can be stopped, stop. If someone needs food, give it. Don't give them a quote. And so, but when that grief has already happened and the body is recovering, then you start asking yourself, what part of me can I still protect? How do I refuse to let this like become who I am? How do I prevent this trauma from being me? And how do I still find love? And so not letting that harm have final authorship over your life. And that's really meaningful for me because like I've suffered so much throughout my life just being like a queer and trans person growing up in the 90s, like just by circumstance, material conditions in which I was born, the harm was caused. And I make meaning because like through that suffering, I'm like, this is meaningful and this is how. And so that's been a huge source of my motivation. So what I take from Frankl is that meaning is specific. There's no single answer to the meaning of life that works for everyone. My meaning may not be the same as Britt's meaning, and my meaning at 20 is not the same meaning as now. And life keeps asking new things of us. The second teaching that I take away is that meaning is relational. It's not always found by staring into your own soul alone, like just reflecting inwardly and like spinning out in your own mind. It's found through love and responsibility and community and like caring for others and like helping people find themselves. And then the fourth is about that freedom is real, but it's not simple. Inner freedom can be real even when outer freedom is limited, but inner freedom doesn't cancel oppression. And then the fifth teaching is that love is a source of meaning. Love helps make a person love that sees, that honors, that helps make a person human. And then the sixth teaching is that beauty and humor are not small. They are survival forms. They're the way souls breathe under pressure. And then the seventh is liberation takes time. Getting free is not the same as feeling free. The body has to learn, the spirit has to return, and the story has to be rebuilt. Yeah. So as queer people, I think it means queer spirituality cannot be built on denial. Like we can't pretend like everything's fine and that suffering is noble. We can't keep pretending that we're free in some abstract way while ignoring the real way that systems oppress us. Queer spirituality has to be honest, like honest about our bodies and our grief and our trauma and our oppression. But queer spirituality can't stop at harm because if harm becomes the only story, then the systems that hurt us will control the meaning of our lives. So Frankel asks us, what else is true? Who did we love? Who loved us? Who did we become? What did we build? What future did we help make imaginable for someone else? And that's our role. We can be part of someone else's thread. We can be the person who makes tomorrow believable. We can say your life is not over. Sometimes meaning is a task, it's a person, it's a bowl of soup, it's remembering the face of someone you love. And sometimes it's staying alive long enough to become someone you could not yet imagine.
That was really beautiful and sad and beautiful. And we can all take something from his teachings and his experiences and relate it to our own lives. Like I don't care who you are, how privileged you are. I think of somebody like Paris Hilton, that like tangent, Paris Hilton, who testified against like the abuse of those schools. Somebody like her who didn't have to go through the trauma of doing something like that. Like she didn't have to, but she chose to like stand up and take on pain and like help people and help give a voice. And like I can relate to her even though we have such different experiences because we've both like gone through this horrible trauma that is trauma no matter who you are, the shared trauma of going through an experience to try to help others, like we can relate. And like you can find people to relate to no matter what your experiences are. And we all have shared trauma, and we can all connect to each other. We can all find, every single one of us can find a single thing in any other single person that we can connect with. And that's love.
Well said. So is life meaningless?
As I said when we started this podcast, I do not believe that.
Yes, exactly. It just doesn't come with a pre-written meaning. You make it for yourself. And that is the purpose of life, really.
Yeah, we all choose what life means to us.
Yeah. Thank you for listening to this long podcast and making space for me to share this really important book and how it's changed me and how I think queer people can make meaning in their own lives. So really appreciate it. And I love you very much.
I love you too. All right.
Bye.
Bye.
Remember, you don't have to have it all figured out. We sure don't. But you still get to ask the big questions, even the ones that don't have answers.
Thanks for being here with us. This has been Maple and Myrrh. We'll be back soon, or maybe you'll just stumble on the next podcast right when you need to.
If you want to support the podcast, you can find us on Patreon.